Welcome, listeners, to another My Mind MashUps deep dive, where we unravel mysteries, spark curiosity, and make sense of complex ideas together.
Today, we are peering through a very specific and maybe an unsettling window.
Yeah, I think so. It feels like one that separates our Western assumptions about what's real from the profound, lived spiritual experience of most of the world.
That's it, exactly.
The mission of this deep dive is, I think, really crucial. It's a journey toward cultural literacy, challenging our comfortable, secular assumptions, and expanding our understanding of why ritual and occult beliefs aren't just relics of the past.
They're active, powerful forces. They're shaping politics, health, and even the law today.
Right. And for this, we're taking a pretty heavy stack of sources. We're blending anthropology, some hard data, neuroscience, and personal testimony, really trying to bridge that huge gap between myth and documented reality.
We're aiming for those genuine aha moments, the kind of moments that show you why just dismissing all of this as superstition isn't just, well, intellectually lazy.
It's more than that.
It fundamentally blinds us to how billions of people actually organize their societies.
Exactly. And I want to start with a feeling that's become so pervasive, especially over the last decade or so. Why does everything feel like a ritual now? I mean, think about the imagery that's just flooded our global consciousness. You see these blockbuster concerts that use inverted crosses, fire circles, strange architectural symbolism.
And we just accept it as part of the show.
We do. And then on the other end, you see the rise of manifestation journals, blood magic aesthetics on social media, crystal subscriptions, all of it stripped of its original context, but it still has this power to captivate us.
You're right. There's a strange sense of a shift, isn't there? You watch a performance, could be a music festival, could be a high fashion show, and the symbolism is just thick.
It's everywhere. Horned figures, cloaks, precise geometries.
And our Western default, our immediate reaction, is to call it shock art. Or maybe something like subversive aesthetics.
We just label it as fake. Performance. But here's the thing. If you were to show that exact same imagery, that same choreography of movement and sound to a practitioner of Vodou in Haiti,
or a traditional priest in Ghana,
or someone who genuinely fears jinn in the UAE, they wouldn't see fashion.
No. They'd see a ritual they recognize. Maybe it's stripped of its context, sure, but it's profoundly serious to them.
And that profound dissonance, that cultural illiteracy, that's what we're focusing on today. We're exploring a global reality that the modern hyper-rational West has, for a long time, just ignored.
And let's be clear, this is not about fear-mongering.
No.
This is a journey toward true cultural literacy. We want to understand the function of these dark arts, not just sensationalize the outcomes.
Let's unpack that conflict, but before we dive in, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you enjoy content that makes you think. It really does help us tremendously in continuing these explorations.
So the central conflict, it couldn't be starker, really. In the Western consumer world, witchcraft is purely entertainment. It's a commodity.
Yeah, it's the safe, sanitized, metaphorical kind of evil you enjoy on Halloween or, purchase as a self-care kit from a wellness brand.
It's something we can play with.
And there's an implicit belief that we can't actually be harmed by it. It's all just low-stakes fantasy.
Whereas globally, it operates in the category of real-world danger. It influences public health, judicial decisions, economic strategies, and crucially, personal safety.
It's a feature that's woven into the very fabric of everyday life for billions of people.
And often with tragic, violent, and just devastating consequences.
Let's zoom in on that global reality for a second, because for many of our listeners, this might still sound like something out of a history book, not current affairs.
We are talking about contemporary, documented fears that determine daily behavior. We're talking about communities in West Africa where ritual killings for money magic, what's known as Juju, are a persistent criminal reality.
A reality where politicians are consulting witch doctors to curse their rivals.
Right, and where elderly women are banished to witch camps after being accused of causing some kind of misfortune.
And then you contrast that with the Middle East, where the belief in jinn, these invisible autonomous beings, is so pervasive that, as our sources show, legal systems treat sorcery not as fraud, but as an actual criminal act.
And you have court cases in Abu Dhabi that explicitly target and sentence people for practicing sorcery. The state itself confirms that it treats the belief as a reality.
Or you think about the massive scale of spiritual distress in South Asia. In India, people who believe they're afflicted by butts or ghosts, they queue for days at temples like Mahandapur Balaji.
And they're seeking public exorcisms that are often physically grueling. It shows this profound cultural reliance on spiritual intervention for afflictions that we in the West would just categorize as mental illness.
And even closer to home, geographically, the drug cartels in Latin America are actively consulting Brujas witches to predict law enforcement movements or to consecrate their drug shipments.
They view magical protection as an essential part of their multi-billion-dollar operations. The stakes are profoundly, brutally real.
So the essential conclusion we're drawing from our sources is this: witchcraft, in the broad sense of intentional, unseen influence, it never died out.
No. The West simply stopped paying critical attention. We developed a kind of sophisticated blind spot toward this entire dimension of human experience.
That blind spot is the key.
Yeah.
So how did Western culture, which, defines itself by its empirical rigor, how did it systematically exclude a worldview that's shared by most of the planet?
It's a systemic exclusion,
Right.
and it's really rooted in the Enlightenment. The dominance of the secular worldview established science and empirical measurement as the only arbiters of truth.
Right. Philosophers like Descartes and Hume systematically elevated rationalism and materialism.
And in doing so, they effectively consigned anything that defied immediate physical proof like spirits, curses, or unseen causality to the dustbin of superstition.
So if you couldn't put it under a microscope or, quantify it with mathematics, it was deemed irrational.
Irrelevant, and certainly not a worthy subject of serious discourse.
And this created a culture where the very vocabulary for literal, personal, non-metaphorical, spiritual conflict just vanished from mainstream thought.
Precisely. So when ritualistic elements were presented in the West, they were automatically filed under entertainment. They got disguised as performance art or fashion or fantasy fiction like Harry Potter.
And this secularization was reinforced by the evolution of many Western religious institutions themselves, wasn't it? They shifted focus from literal demons to metaphorical evil.
Yes, to social injustice, moral corruption, systemic failures. If the language of personal spiritual warfare disappears from the pulpit, it disappears from the cultural lexicon.
Which leads us directly to the modern sort of fourth layer of this blind spot, the total commodification of whatever spiritual concepts are left.
What was once a system of immense power and risk, whether for good or for ill, has been neutralized and repackaged as consumerist self-care.
We see it everywhere. Crystals, manifestation journals, tarot decks, and spell kits sold in department stores and wellness boutiques.
The entire concept of invoking unseen forces has been rebranded as a therapeutic tool for self-optimization.
It completely sanitizes the darker, more demanding, and, as we're seeing, the globally dangerous elements of these practices. It's the ultimate trivialization.
We have turned a global spiritual force that drives violence, law, and politics into a $30 trend.
And that disconnect, the sanitized fantasy versus the global reality, that is the lens we have to maintain as we start this world tour.
We have to move beyond the metaphor. We have to explore where the belief in dark arts directly dictates life and death.
Our first stop, West Africa, it shows us this horrifying nexus of spiritual belief and socioeconomic desperation.
Belief in Juju, which is a potent spiritual force or charm that can be harnessed by priests or sorcerers, is endemic across Nigeria, Ghana, and beyond.
And it's a belief system that cuts across established Muslim and Christian lines, which shows its deep indigenous roots.
Yes. And the most terrifying manifestation of this, which is detailed in our sources, is the persistence of ritual murders. They're often linked to money magic.
This is a profound, horrifying example of how these spiritual beliefs intersect with economic pressure.
Our sources detailed a chilling case from just this year, January 2024, in Ogun State, Nigeria. 4 young men were charged with murdering a 20-year-old woman named Sofiat Kihinda.
And their alleged intent was to burn her head and use her body parts in a Juju ritual.
A ritual intended to bring them quick wealth. The belief is that the potency of the charm is directly proportional to the nature of the sacrifice.
So this isn't just gang violence, it's a structural belief that wealth can be spiritually manufactured through specific, brutal rituals.
Exactly. And this practice isn't new. I mean, think about the 2004 discovery at the Okija Shrine in Anambra State. Police found over 50 human bodies and skulls.
That's staggering.
This shrine was reportedly used as a kind of spiritual arbitration center. Litigants would attend, they'd drink a potion, and if they died later, they were deemed guilty by the Juju priests.
And their bodies just remained there.
It's a horrific fusion of traditional belief and a kind of criminal justice system that enforces fear and obedience.
The fear is institutionalized through practices like that, and also through the creation of these witch camps.
Ghana, in particular, has institutionalized the fear of witchcraft through banishment. Accused women who are overwhelmingly elderly, widowed, or socially marginalized are driven from their homes.
And they're sequestered in these camps, often overseen by traditional priests. And the accusation, it usually arises from an attempt to explain some kind of misfortune, right? Illness or death in the community.
Yes, and this often means a complete destruction of their lives and their dignity. Our sources mention the 2020 lynching of a 90-year-old woman, Akua Dante.
She was murdered after a diviner accused her of being a witch responsible for village misfortunes.
That tragedy just underscores the severity. Now, anthropologists, they view these accusations as a kind of social safety valve.
What does that mean exactly?
When resources are scarce, or when there are property disputes, witchcraft becomes a convenient, culturally sanctioned vocabulary for labeling the undesirable elements of society.
And this belief is incredibly widespread. The surveys we looked at show 79% of Zambians, for example, believe in witchcraft.
Which leads middle-class individuals and even high-level politicians to seek out witch doctors for protection or to curse their rivals. This is just the background noise of daily life there.
That really sets the stage. Okay, let's transition now to Haiti and the unique syncretism of Vodou, where the relationship with the unseen is both devotional and deeply frightening.
Vodou is a deeply misunderstood faith. It's a beautiful and complex blend of West African traditions, Catholic iconography, and indigenous beliefs.
And it recognizes Bondi, the distant high god, and the Owa.
Right, the Owa are the powerful spirits,
Yeah.
like Legba, the opener of the way, or Urzuli Freda, the spirit of love.
And the critical element here is the concept of possession, the Loa mounting the believer. Now, in the Western context, possession is universally seen as terrifying and destructive.
But in Vodou, it's often celebrated as divine communion. It's an institutionalized mechanism for spiritual communication, healing, and guidance.
It's a collective ritual that, as the sociologist Lennox Herbin observed, helps Haitians convert private misery into collective ritual.
It transforms individual trauma into communal meaning.
But then there's the shadow side of Vodou. There's the Bokor, the sorcerer, and the most globally recognized element of fear, the zombie.
The zombie case is absolutely crucial because it forces us to confront a documented reality. The story of Clairvius Narcisse.
He was officially declared dead and buried in 1962.
18 years later, he reappeared. He identified himself and claimed a Bokor had revived him with drugs, turning him into a slave on a remote plantation until the sorcerer's death allowed him to flee.
And Haitian psychiatrists, like Lamarck Dion, they actually verified the death certificate and the man's identity. It forced a real scientific inquiry.
It did, and the scientific speculation centered on pharmacology. The theory suggests the Bokor administers a carefully controlled cocktail containing tetrodotoxin.
Which is derived from the pufferfish, right?
Exactly. It induces a profound, death-like paralysis and a metabolic slowdown. Then, following this state, they administer a secondary drug, likely datura, which is highly dissociative,
So it causes amnesia, suggestibility, confusion.
creating the perfect psychological profile for a mindless, compliant slave.
So the spiritual concept, the zombie, is actually anchored in a specific, sophisticated, and terrifying application of indigenous chemistry.
Yes. The Bokor uses the cultural belief in combination with powerful toxins to enforce social control. It functions as a punishment system outside the official law.
It just demonstrates that these ritual and belief systems, they don't have to be dismissed. They often contain genuine, hidden expertise that's wielded for very real outcomes.
From the pharmacological spiritualism of Haiti, let's move to the vast scale of spiritual distress and resolution in South Asia, specifically India and Nepal.
India hosts these massive temples dedicated to spiritual healing and exorcism. Our sources highlight the Mahandipur Balaji Temple in Rajasthan.
And unlike the more private Western concept of exorcism, this is a public, open, and sometimes violent ritual.
Can you describe the scene for us?
It's overwhelming. Families bring individuals they believe are possessed by boots, ghosts, or malevolent spirits. You see afflicted people chained up behind the temple grounds,
Or forced to perform these grueling, repetitive physical acts.
like repeatedly sliding down steep stone steps, while powerful chants invoking the deity Hanuman are issued to expel the spirit. The afflicted person might scream, move convulsively, or claim the spirit is departing.
A skeptic would immediately see symptoms of severe mental illness, dissociation, or mass hysteria. But for the believers, the cultural function is just undeniable.
It provides resolution. When a family faces inexplicable suffering, this template offers a path to an explanation and a cure. It's a socially sanctioned public theater of healing.
So the afflicted person isn't just crazy.
No, they are temporarily occupied by an external force, and the community is mobilized to expel it. The psychological relief for both the patient and the family, even if the root cause is purely medical, is often immense.
And outside these major temples, you have the more localized figures of power.
Yes, the tantric practitioners of Tantra in India and Nepal, or the Jankri shamans in Nepal, they act as spiritual intermediaries.
And they offer everything from charms for fertility and business success to vengeance.
The Jankri enter trance states, often induced by drumming, to negotiate with spirits to cure illness or retrieve lost souls. For these communities, this is standard spiritual first aid, not some fringe activity.
This whole tour just forces us to acknowledge that what we in the West call superstition is, in fact, a deeply integrated system of psychosocial and legal control across the globe.
Building on that foundation, let's now explore the areas where these unseen forces are not only believed in, but are directly incorporated into institutional structures.
Specifically, the law in the Middle East and organized crime in Latin America.
Let's start with the Islamic world and the powerful, pervasive concept of the jinn. They are profoundly misunderstood in the West.
Absolutely. The genie in the bottle is a complete trivialization.
The Quran describes jinn as sentient beings created from smokeless fire. And unlike angels, they possess free will, they live in a parallel dimension, and they can be good, morally gray, or actively malevolent.
And they can interfere with human life, cause illness, drive madness, or critically possess humans.
The profound implication is that a spiritual reality coexists seamlessly with the physical one, and this belief is robust enough to form the basis of actual legal action.
This is the crucial institutional acknowledgement the West just ignores.
The United Arab Emirates, with its modern legal system, explicitly criminalizes sorcery. They view it as deception and a danger to public order.
And our sources highlight a pretty significant 2023 case in Abu Dhabi.
Yes, where 7 individuals were sentenced to 6 months imprisonment and heavy fines for practicing sorcery, claiming a 400-year-old genie resided in one of the defendants.
So the court wasn't debating the existence of the jinn.
Not at all. It was penalizing the illegal, exploitative practice of sorcery related to that belief. The state is acting based on a worldview that acknowledges the power of the unseen.
And this institutional recognition reinforces widespread daily behavioral precautions, doesn't it?
Yes, these are not fringe beliefs. Across the Muslim diaspora, specific rituals and precautions are followed to avoid attracting or angering jinn.
Things like avoiding bathing or trimming your nails on Wednesday evenings.
Or taking specific care when entering abandoned buildings or bathrooms. These are small daily acts of spiritual self-defense.
And the specific response to a suspected jinn possession is ruqya.
Ruqya is the established Islamic form of exorcism. It relies on the recitation of specific verses from the Quran, often coupled with blowing holy water onto the afflicted person.
And it's widely practiced across the globe, including in the Muslim diaspora in the West.
We found reports profiling British imams who charge fees to perform these recitations, which emphasizes that while it's a legitimate spiritual practice, it also attracts numerous charlatans capitalizing on severe spiritual distress.
The seriousness of jinn belief, legislated by a modern state, offers such a stark contrast to the Western joke about genies.
Now let's pivot sharply to Latin America, where the dark arts brujeria are interwoven with the staggering violence and economics of organized crime.
So we're moving from law to the complete rejection of law. How do these spiritual practices fit into the operational strategy of drug cartels?
Cartels treat spiritual warfare as seriously as they treat physical warfare. Brujeria involves hexes and protection magic. Investigative reports, citing experts like Robert Almonte, detail how cartels consult bruja female witches or brujo male sorcerers to inform their tactical decisions.
Can you give us specifics on that consultation process? What are they actually trying to achieve?
They seek predictions about betrayal within their ranks, they seek curses against rival gangs, police, or judges, and blessings to ensure the safe passage of contraband.
And the rituals can involve what? Rubbing eggs on someone's body to clear negative energy?
Spitting rum during an invocation, or acquiring highly specific amulets? For a cartel leader, spiritual protection is a core business necessity.
It sounds almost like a dark version of corporate consulting. They're integrating the unseen into their business model.
Exactly. And this leads us to the most chilling figure associated with cartel activity, the dark variant of Santa Muerte, the Holy Death.
Now, Santa Muerte is hugely popular in Mexico. Many mainstream followers see her as a non-judgmental saint who grants earthly favors. But how does this dark variant specifically appeal to organized crime?
The dark variant is invoked explicitly for malice and protection during illicit acts. The FBI Law Enforcement Bulletin found something very telling. Over half of all prayers directed to Santa Muerte explicitly ask for harm, vengeance, or death to others. Wow. She's viewed by these criminal groups as the ultimate enforcer of protection and vengeance.
And the consequences of this worship can be truly horrifying.
They can be. The most extreme example is the 2012 case in Sonora, Mexico. Cult members were arrested after investigators discovered they had sacrificed two 10-year-old boys and one woman.
And the victims had their throats slit, and their blood was poured around an altar dedicated to this dark variant of Santa Muerte.
This moves so far beyond superstition. It is a profound and lethal reality.
This global tour, from the witch camps of Ghana through the courtrooms of Abu Dhabi to the human sacrifice altars used by cartels, it should shatter any lingering notion that the dark arts are just folklore.
This is the bedrock of life and death for countless people.
Now, having established this profound global reality, we have to take this new lens and apply it back to the Western culture that typically just laughs it off.
If the first half of this deep dive was about challenging the Western dismissal, the second half is about realizing that we may be seeing rituals everywhere.
But our culture has simply neutralized their power by calling them entertainment.
The Western default is to separate form from intent. We see the inverted crosses or the fire circles, but because we assume the performer isn't actually invoking a demon, we conclude the performance is meaningless.
But the aesthetics are unmistakably rooted in ritual.
Let's talk about the concert as ritual. Modern entertainment has co-opted the precise architecture and choreography of spiritual rites.
The 2021 Astroworld tragedy is a tragic illustration of how the modern audience, even subconsciously, reads performance through a supernatural lens.
After the fatal crowd crush, sources widely circulated the idea that the event resembled a sacrifice. Users on platforms like TikTok analyzed the stage design, the specific use of fire, the centralized vortex of the crowd, the seemingly chaotic energy.
And they interpreted it as a mass ritual gone wrong.
Whether the artists intended it or not, the atmosphere, the extreme sound, the visuals, the collective altered state induced by the crowd dynamics, it created an experience that felt less like a concert and more like a mass invocation.
And the audience used the vocabulary of the occult to process that trauma.
And this imagery is standard for so many high-profile artists. Travis Scott, Lil Nas X, Doja Cat. They use horned figures, simulated bloodbaths, and pentagrams.
Stage designs often incorporate what anthropological scholars call ritual architecture. Altars, archways, and precise symbolic placements meant to amplify energy and structure the collective experience.
The normalization is staggering. These formerly taboo symbols are now just trendy. It's desensitization at the highest level, an entire generation absorbing these images without the historical or spiritual context that goes with them globally.
And that normalization is accelerated by the second force, commercialization.
The commodification of the occult is the most accessible face of this shift. We see high fashion houses, beauty brands, and vast sections of the wellness industry selling products centered on the aesthetics of witchcraft, the dark feminine, or elemental magic.
It's the ultimate safe washing. Crystals and manifestation techniques are rebranded as self-optimization tools.
You can purchase spell kits and tarot cards right alongside your protein powder. The serious, demanding work of traditional spiritual practices is gutted and repackaged for rapid consumption.
But established practitioners, the ones who take these practices seriously, they issue strong warnings about this consumerist sanitization.
Their argument is twofold. First, it's disrespectful appropriation. Taking something like smudging or ayahuasca, which are sacred medicine systems within indigenous contexts, and repackaging them as a fashionable weekend activity undermines their profound spiritual purpose.
And second,
they warn that removing rituals from their necessary cultural and cosmological structure renders them hollow, even potentially unstable for the casual user.
It just cheapens the power. The goal is no longer spiritual transformation or communal healing. The goal is monetization.
And this commercial shift, combined with the extreme cultural isolation of the pandemic, created the perfect conditions for the explosion of the online occult.
If this is resonating, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next deep dive. We're about to explore how algorithms became the new oracle.
The technological leap from buying a crystal in a shop to having your spiritual guidance delivered by a machine. Well, that's the story of Witch Talk.
The numbers detailing the growth of the hashtag Witch Talk subculture are just astonishing. At the start of 2020, before the global lockdowns, the hashtag had about 6 million views on TikTok.
By the middle of that same year, during peak isolation, it had ballooned to 1.7 billion views.
That is an exponential surge. It's fueled by isolation and anxiety.
Psychologists point out that when people are separated from traditional communal structures, church, school, work, and faced with existential uncertainty, they desperately seek meaning and control. The internet provided both the community and the answers.
But what makes this unique is how the technology itself morphed into a spiritual entity. This is what you call algorithmic divination.
It's a scholarly term, and it describes the phenomenon where users treat the TikTok For You page algorithm not as a neutral recommendation engine, but as a deliberate, supernatural intermediary, a modern oracle.
And you constantly hear that phrase on those videos, if this found you, it was meant for you.
That's the core tenet. It implies divine or universal agency in the delivery of personalized content. The algorithm knows what you need, and its selection is seen as destiny.
It's technomancy divination via technology.
And because of the speed and accessibility of the internet, this fosters rampant syncretism. Witch talkers are blending everything. Christian angels, Greek deities, Egyptian mythology, astrology, New Age manifestation.
And ancient pagan practices into entirely new, personalized, often contradictory belief systems.
The speed of information diffusion has completely outpaced the ability of tradition to maintain any context.
So you have this massive, diffuse, personalized, digitally driven awakening in the West, yet at the same time you have the oldest institutional authority in the West, the Catholic Church, treating the unseen world with escalating extreme formality.
This institutional seriousness is the hidden reality that most secular Westerners are completely unaware of. For the Catholic Church, Satan and demons are not metaphors.
They're personalized, malevolent beings.
And demonic possession is classified as an extraordinary phenomenon that requires the specialized, powerful intervention of an exorcist.
And the demand for that intervention in the U.S. has spiked, which the Church has categorized as a pastoral emergency.
The statistics are really striking. The number of official Catholic exorcists in the United States has increased tenfold in less than 2 decades.
Tenfold.
In 2005, there were only about a dozen. By 2023, the number stood between 125 and 150. This surge is a direct response to a perceived rise in genuine spiritual affliction, often attributed to the rise of the occult, drug abuse, and isolation.
So they aren't just reacting, they're actively training to meet this demand on a global institutional scale.
Yes. The Vatican's Pontifical Athenaeum in Rome offers formalized exorcism courses. In the U.S., the Pope Leo III Institute trains priests specifically in the meticulous process of discernment distinguishing true possession from severe mental illness.
And Pope Francis formally recognized the International Association of Exorcists in 2014, which solidifies the bureaucratic seriousness of the practice.
This really brings to the surface that tragic tension between faith, law, and medicine. When does a priest intervene, and when does a psychiatrist?
The historical example that's often cited is the case of Anneliese Michel in Germany from 1975 to 1976.
After suffering severe psychological distress and seizures, she underwent 67 exorcisms and ultimately died of malnutrition and dehydration. Her parents and the 2 priests were convicted of negligent homicide.
And the medical opinion at the time was clear. She was suffering from epilepsy and psychosis.
That case is a brutal reminder of the high stakes and the necessity of discernment.
So how do institutions manage this critical boundary?
They proceed with extreme caution, often requiring a medical evaluation first. A consultant psychiatrist, Richard Gallagher, who has worked closely with the Catholic Church on these matters, estimates that genuine demonic possession accounts for only about 1 in 5,000 referred cases.
1 in 5,000. That's a tiny fraction.
It is. Yet he maintains that some specific phenomena like polyglottism, a profound physical aversion to sacred objects, or inexplicable strength are difficult to dismiss entirely with purely medical explanations.
So the tension remains, but the official response is institutionalized and highly serious. The existence of a global bureaucracy dedicated to combating literal demons tells a very different story than the crystal shop on Main Street.
We need to give serious time to this next section because this is where we engage the skeptic.
Right.
Even if you hold the most rigorously secular view and you reject any supernatural claim, the belief systems we've discussed still fundamentally alter human reality. Science shows us that ritual and belief are active, physical agents.
This is where the nocebo and placebo effects move beyond just interesting concepts and become, well, lethal mechanisms.
Precisely. The placebo effect, where positive expectation triggers physiological relief, is well established. But the nocebo effect, negative expectation, is just as powerful.
The belief that you've been cursed.
Or hexed, or targeted by Juju. That belief can trigger real, measurable, and profound physical symptoms. Pain, psychological paralysis, or extreme anxiety that leads to physiological shutdown. In cultures where curses are deeply feared, the stress response can literally contribute to death.
So in a society that believes in curses, the social framework itself provides the infrastructure for both the illness and the cure.
Exactly. When a person is cursed, they become a carrier of a socially recognized illness. Exorcism, in this context, whether in India, the Middle East, or the Catholic Church, acts as an idiom of distress.
It's a culturally sanctioned ritual
that allows the suffering person to express their unbearable anxiety in a public, theatrical way. The ritual of the exorcism is the necessary, powerful counterspell required to lift that nocebo effect and reinstate the victim back into the community as healthy.
The ritual provides the necessary psychological and social resolution, and the neuroscience suggests these states are not merely acting.
A 2017 study that examined individuals undergoing possession trances found unique, distinct EEG patterns in the brain. They specifically recorded high-amplitude beta waves in hyperarousal states.
So these patterns suggest a genuinely altered state of consciousness.
Yes, a mental functioning distinct from normal waking behavior, deep meditation, or simple mimicry.
That is a critical distinction. It means the brain is reacting to the ritual and the belief in a highly specific, non-ordinary way.
Furthermore, we see measurable results even in remote ritualistic actions. A randomized trial studying remote biofield healing found that subjects who received the non-contact, intention-based healing reported significant improvements in symptoms of anxiety and depression compared to the control group.
Which indicates that intention, ritual, and a shared belief system can impact perceived mental health even across a distance.
This forces us to define reality more broadly than just the material.
And that leads us to the WHO's classification system, which attempts to draw a line here.
The ICD-11 classifies possession trance disorder as a dissociative disorder characterized by an involuntary trance. However,
there's a big caveat.
They insert a crucial one. This diagnosis should not be applied to culturally accepted or highly sought-after possession states, like those found in Vodou or certain forms of shamanism, because they serve a positive communal function.
So if the trance is involuntary and destructive, it's a disorder. But if it's culturally sought, controlled, and constructive, it's a valid cultural expression.
Precisely. And this highlights the essential psychological functions of ritual. Rituals provide structure, predictability, community, and meaning in a chaotic world.
Let's use the Vodou example again to illustrate that.
In Vodou, possession ceremonies provide a crucial psychological outlet. The possessed person can voice profound societal grievances, political despair, economic hardship, family conflict, while temporarily assuming the identity of a powerful law.
This temporary displacement allows the community to absorb and validate the distress.
And anthropological studies of Haitian refugees showed that Vodou ceremonies actively help them transform feelings of profound helplessness and trauma into a sense of agency and collective control.
That feeling of agency is so powerful. Even in the West, when we gather for a concert with ritualistic aesthetics, the chanting, the shared symbols, the call and response, we are unknowingly participating in a similar cathartic process.
A collective psychological pressure release that affirms community. The modern West discarded its traditional mechanisms for processing collective trauma.
The global reality is that many cultures still utilize sophisticated millennia-old systems, whether spiritual or pharmaceutical, to manage human distress.
And that is why the West is desperately trying to rediscover those systems now.
Before we connect all these threads, a final reminder. Like, comment, and subscribe to hear more My Mind MashUps deep dives. Your engagement really helps us keep going.
The sensation that the veil is thinning, that the boundary between the material and the unseen is dissolving, isn't just a subjective feeling.
It's a sociological convergence of profound cultural forces hitting the West all at once.
The foundational shift is the rapid, ongoing collapse of traditional institutional authority, especially organized religion.
You just have to look at the data. A 2023 Gallup poll shows that U.S. church membership is now comfortably below 50%. Weekly attendance is hovering around 20%.
And critically, the percentage of Americans identifying as spiritual but not religious continues to skyrocket.
The key dynamic is that search for personalized meaning. As trust in monolithic, rigid religious institutions wanes, people seek spirituality that offers individual control and immediate, actionable guidance.
So they turn to tarot, manifestation, crystals, and personalized belief syncretism, the exact products of witch talk.
This spiritual vacuum is paralleled by a massive erosion of trust in secular authority across the board. Government, media, corporations.
Global instability, polarization, the pandemic, climate crises, they have left younger generations feeling profoundly powerless.
And when systems fail to provide stability or coherent answers, people naturally seek alternative systems that offer a sense of order, predictability, or even a scapegoat.
Which is why both conspiracy theories and mystical practices flourish. They provide complete deterministic worldviews.
Psychologically, this entire occult awakening can be interpreted through the lens of Carl Jung and the integration of the shadow.
Jungian psychology posits that a culture, just like an individual, represses certain traits: intuition, anger, powerful femininity, raw sexuality, and that forms a collective shadow.
So the resurgence of the witch archetype, the figure of intuitive power, the healer, the crone, is a mass psychological project to integrate that repressed shadow.
It's about reclaiming power. The pandemic heightened feelings of vulnerability and powerlessness, and exploring the dark arts offers a vocabulary for agency. It allows individuals to process suppressed anger and reclaim a sense of intuitive control over their own destiny.
And critically, this exploration is no longer happening in isolated pockets. Thanks to the internet and global migration, there is unprecedented cross-cultural diffusion.
We are seeing the seamless movement of concepts. Immigration brings Vodou, brujeria, and shamanism into Western cities. Global media and the internet expose Westerners to jinn lore and detailed African rituals.
This exposure doesn't just provide curiosity, it broadens the vocabulary people use to interpret their own experiences. An unexplained phenomenon is no longer just a coincidence.
Now, people have the framework to interpret it as synchronicity, a prophetic dream, or potentially a jinn encounter. The internet provides the infrastructure for people to interpret life events through frameworks that were previously inaccessible to Western secular minds.
The convergence of failed institutions, mass trauma, and technological access suggests that the Western awakening isn't just a new trend,
but perhaps a sociological return to an older, shared global worldview, one that was only temporarily suppressed by the scientific rationalism of the last few centuries. The veil feels thin because our cultural structures, which were thick and rigid, have started to crumble.
This intense deep dive has spanned continents, legal systems, and brain science. We've covered the horrors of ritual killings and the healing function of collective trance. We have to end where we began, by stressing the necessary balance.
The key takeaway is discernment and respect. The dark arts are not relics of the past. They are living, serious, and active traditions that shape law, health, and social conflict across the majority of the world.
And the Western tendency to trivialize or commodify these practices must be tempered by respect and an awareness of the real-world harm that results from charlatans and extreme belief.
We highlighted the tragedies, the human sacrifices linked to cartels, the lynchings in Africa, and the ethical catastrophe of the Annalise Michel case.
But we also established the measurable, profound psychological and social benefits of ritual and belief when they're used properly within a cultural context to process trauma.
Discernment is paramount. Do not fear what you do not understand, but absolutely do not trivialize what billions of people take seriously. Cultural literacy is vital. We must understand the symbolism, the history, and the complexity before we adopt, appropriate, or exploit the practices.
And we must maintain critical thinking to avoid misdiagnosing mental illness as possession or dismissing genuine spiritual need as fantasy. As the West continues its search for agency and meaning outside of traditional institutions, the symbols and practices it adopts must be seen in their full, globally complex context.
We need humility to engage with this material.
So we leave you with this final, provocative thought to mull over.
What if the Western world isn't discovering something new, but remembering something ancient?
We encourage you to continue this discussion and exploration. Find My Mind Mashups everywhere you listen: Amazon Music, Audible, Facebook, Pocket Casts, Spotify, TikTok, and YouTube.
Drop your thoughts in the comments. Your perspective could shape our next deep dive.
Thank you for joining us for this intense exploration of the global reality of the dark arts. Until next time.